This is the hidden threshold, a quiet crossing, a place where practice deepens and belief is examined from the inside. Here, we explore devotion without dogma, discernment without dismissal, ritual without performance, not as instruction, not as certainty, as a lived, evolving path. I'm Veyrin Vale. Let's begin. Balance always sounds so inviting, doesn't it? Just hearing the word brings to mind images of tranquil mornings, soft light streaming through the windows, everything neatly arranged and humming along just as it should. I used to imagine that balance meant existing in this perfect, undisturbed space, kind of like hovering in the center of a storm, serene and untouched, while the world spun and clattered on the outside. It seemed like something you could achieve if you just tried hard enough, like a permanent state of calm waiting to be unlocked. But in reality, balance has never felt that simple or serene to me. If anything, it's the opposite, messy, unpredictable, and full of contradictions. Most days, I feel like I'm walking a fraying tightrope above a noisy crowd without a safety net, struggling to keep my footing as life keeps throwing new challenges my way. It's not just about juggling responsibilities, it's about managing the emotional undercurrent that comes with trying to keep everything afloat. There's always this underlying hum of anxiety, a subtle pressure reminding me that if I let go or stop moving, the whole precarious arrangement might collapse. Sometimes, balance feels less like a state of harmony and more like a frantic scramble to avoid falling apart. After one particularly difficult breakdown, when I finally allowed myself to sit in the stillness and really listen to what was happening inside me, I started to understand that my version of balance doesn't look like those curated images we see everywhere. It's not polished or picture perfect. My balance is rough around the edges, ever-changing, and often exhausting. It's about improvising solutions in the moment, making quick decisions without a clear sense of what's right, and learning to accept the constant sense of uncertainty. I'm always shifting, adapting, and recalibrating, hoping that the choices I make today will be enough to get me through tomorrow. I've come to realize that balance isn't about eliminating chaos or achieving some flawless symmetry. Instead, it's about learning to move forward even when I feel unsteady, to accept that wobble as part of the process. Sometimes, balance simply means forgiving myself when I drop the ball. It's remembering that balance is not, and does not need to be, perfection. It's a daily acknowledgement that it's okay to struggle. It's about being gentle with myself when things don't go as planned, and recognizing that the messiness is part of being human. What I'm starting to understand, maybe for the first time, is that balance isn't a destination you finally reach and then never have to worry about again. It's a daily, often hourly, practice. It's a commitment to keep showing up for myself, even on the days when everything feels overwhelming. Real balance requires honesty with myself and with others. It asks me to drop the facade, to stop pretending I have it all together, and to accept that imperfection is not only inevitable, but necessary. The truth is, life will always be unpredictable, and the best I can do is keep adjusting, keep moving, and keep extending compassion to myself, no matter how many times I stumble. In the end, balance isn't about staying perfectly upright. It's about learning to dance with the wobble and finding peace in the process, however messy it may be. Lately, I find myself circling back to this notion of balance, not as a fixed destination, but as an ongoing process, something that needs regular attention, like tuning an instrument each day. Especially within my spiritual life, balance isn't something I achieve once and then maintain effortlessly. Instead, it feels more like a practice, a continual recalibration between openness and grounding, spontaneity and structure. In recent months, I've felt a pull to find something more consistent, to build a clearer sense of mindful intention in the way I navigate my daily life. I'd been moving around a lot, reading different things, trying different approaches, letting curiosity steer the wheel. And eventually, I just wanted something that felt solid again. I wanted a framework, a rhythm to my days that felt purposeful, not just reactive. I love exploring, I really do. But at some point, I realized I wasn't just expanding, I was drifting. And I missed having something steady to come back to. That's the paradox of being eclectic, I suppose. My spiritual practice doesn't fit neatly into any single tradition or label. It's patchwork together from the things that resonate, shifting as I grow and learn. There's a kind of discipline in that, paying attention, letting things change when they need to, instead of forcing them to stay the same. But there's also a risk. When everything stays fluid, it can be easy to drift and to lose touch with the deeper intentions beneath it all. Without some kind of container, even the most meaningful practices can start to feel disconnected from any sense of purpose. In the middle of all that drifting, I just started setting some boundaries. I built myself a routine. I picked out certain steps, certain words, even little gestures that told me, okay, this is my sacred time. Bit by bit, my practice started to feel like a ceremony. Every part clicked into place, and I got this dopamine hit, this sense of satisfaction, like I was building something real, something that would last. The routine itself brought me clarity and focus. For a while, I actually felt grounded, like I was finally putting down roots after floating for so long. As I got used to this new routine, I started to notice something subtle going on underneath it all. There was this low-level pressure, like a voice in the back of my mind insisting that if I didn't nail every single step, everything would fall apart. If I slipped up and forgot a word or missed a gesture or even tried to make it feel more real by changing something, that the connection I wanted would just disappear. It felt like the whole ritual only mattered if I did it exactly right, and messing up even a little would make it all pointless. It wasn't a dramatic anxiety. It was more like a slow tightening, a creeping sense that devotion had started to morph into something closer to control. The ritual that once felt freeing now felt confining, as though the structure itself had become the point rather than the connection it was meant to foster. That's the tricky thing about balance. There's no finish line. It's a constantly moving target. There's a delicate line between using structure to support your practice and letting that structure become a barrier. When rituals become rigid, they can obscure the very sense of presence and connection they're meant to nurture. The challenge, I'm learning, is to hold both discipline and flexibility at once, to honor the power of intentionality and form, while also allowing space for imperfection, spontaneity, and grace. I think that's what true balance looks like. It isn't the absence of tension, but the willingness to live inside it, adjusting as you go. It's about trusting that meaning isn't something you can force or guarantee by following every rule to the letter. Sometimes, the most sacred moments are the ones that slip in when you least expect them, when you let go, even just a little, and allow yourself to be surprised by your own aliveness. We all make mistakes. We accidentally flub a word or forget to walk clockwise instead of counterclockwise, or some other equally trivial misstep. In the end, though, the path isn't about perfect execution, but about showing up, again and again, open to whatever unfolds. After one of those nights where I followed every step, said every word just as I was supposed to, and yet still felt that familiar pressure of perfection, I found myself staying put after it was all over. I just allowed myself to be still, to reflect on what had passed. There wasn't thunder from the heavens. The room didn't suddenly warm up. There was no external sign that anything was happening. The room was the same as it always is, and the ceiling as silent as ever. The only thing that filled that space was my own breathing, the sounds of the house, and the sounds of the outside world settling in for the night. But something in that quiet and calm, something significant, hit me. I realized that I'd been carrying this idea that connection, whether with the divine, with myself, or with whatever it is that gives life meaning, had to follow a script. That it was supposed to be marked by ritual, precision, and the right words said in exactly the right way. And while there's comfort in ceremony, power in structure, and moments when form can elevate experience to something intensely sacred, I was struck by the simplicity of presence. Sometimes, the true heart of devotion is just being there, honest and open, without the safety net of ritual or the armor of formality. There are times when the greatest act of faith isn't found in reciting memorized lines or orchestrating every gesture, but in allowing the conversation to be unscripted. In letting the walls down and sitting with whatever comes, whether that is questions, doubts, hopes, or just the quiet itself. It's a vulnerable thing, and at first, it feels unsettling. If connection isn't about flawless execution or perfect words, then it becomes something raw, unpredictable, and deeply real. It's less about getting every detail right and more about showing up as you are. And that's where things began to shift for me. I started to see that balance isn't about rejecting ritual or deciding that structure is meaningless. Instead, it's about recognizing when those forms are serving their purpose, when they help you feel grounded and draw you deeper into meaning, and when they begin to take over, becoming the focus rather than the doorway. When ritual turns into routine and structure hardens into superstition, what was meant to open you up can start to close you off, confining your devotion rather than freeing it. It's so easy to mistake that tightening, that rigidity, for discipline or devotion. But real connection isn't measured by how well you perform the steps. It's found in the willingness to be present, to listen, to bring your whole self, uncertain, imperfect, and authentic, to the table. Sometimes all that's required is to sit quietly, breathe, and trust that presence itself is enough. That, in the end, is where the conversation begins, not with perfection, but with honesty. That moment forced me to reconsider what I actually mean when I talk about balance. I've always pictured balance as a kind of serene plateau, this place you finally arrive at where everything feels steady, where the weight lifts and the pressure just fades away. But the truth is, balance isn't some restful destination or a cozy sanctuary where you can settle down permanently. It's not a retreat where all the hard parts just magically disappear. In reality, balance is so much more dynamic and precarious. It's not a broad, comfortable space. It's more like navigating a tightrope stretched high above the ground. Every step matters. It demands your full awareness. You have to adjust your footing constantly, making small shifts to keep from tipping too far one way or the other. There's no autopilot here. Humility becomes essential because as soon as you think you've mastered it, life throws you off center and you need to find the balance again. People sometimes confuse balance with neutrality, but they're not the same. Neutrality holds back. It removes itself from the fray and refuses to take sides or make commitments. It aims to smooth out the bumps so nothing disrupts its calm, but in doing so, it often disengages from what's real and alive. Neutrality is about observation without investment. It doesn't risk being moved, and it rarely gets involved enough to make a difference. Balance, on the other hand, is not afraid of tension. In fact, it embraces it. It lives right in the heart of the tug of war between competing values, desires, and responsibilities. Balance lets you care fiercely, but it prevents your passion from hardening into stubbornness. It encourages you to ask questions and wrestle with doubt, but it stops you from allowing skepticism to erode everything you once cherished. If you throw yourself entirely into devotion and leave discernment behind, you can become rigid, unable to adapt or see beyond your own perspective. But if you rely solely on discernment, always questioning and second-guessing, never letting yourself be moved or committed, you risk drifting away and losing your anchor and your sense of purpose. That narrow, demanding middle ground is where balance lives. It asks us to do the hard work of holding devotion and discernment together, refusing to let go of either. It means respecting traditions and forms, but never mistaking them for the ultimate end. It means letting your questions lead you deeper, but not wielding them as weapons to destroy everything meaningful. This is where the challenge intensifies and where discomfort can creep in. When you're balancing both sides, you can't hide out. You can't mask your uncertainty with ritual and call it conviction, nor can you retreat into endless skepticism and call it wisdom. You're required to stay present and alert, to keep checking in with yourself about why you do what you do, and whether your habits are still serving your growth or have become empty motions. Balance is active, not passive. It asks you to honestly question when a structure or practice is helping you connect more deeply and when you started serving the structure instead of letting it serve you. It means being willing to let go of what no longer fits, even if it's comfortable, and to accept the discomfort of not always having clear answers. Recalibrating isn't a one-time event. It's a continuous process. It's about realigning moment by moment. That's the deeper work of balance, risking presence, embracing tension, and refusing to settle for easy answers or comfortable neutrality. It's the perpetually ongoing, oftentimes exhausting, but rewarding labor of staying awake to your own life. That's where transformation happens. That's what it really means to do the work. The longer I think about this, the more I see that it's not just about ritual. This pops up everywhere. Identity sets like concrete, just like rituals do. You start with something grounding. This is me. This is what matters to me. But over time, it gets rigid. You end up defending it instead of living it. Opinions turn into ceremony. We repeat them out of habit, almost like reciting old prayers, because they make us feel safe, not because we've actually thought them through. Even the way we talk can turn into armor. The way we carry ourselves screams defense. We pick the right words, nail the right tone, make sure we're with the right crowd. Underneath all that, there's this low hum of fear. We think that if we let go, even a little, everything might fall apart, no matter how ridiculous or irrational that fear might be. That's when balance throws a tougher question at you. Is this structure supporting your life, or are you just propping up the structure? This isn't just about spirituality. It's how you handle politics. It's how you show up in relationships. It's how you hold your identity. It's how you carry your pain. Are you using these forms to feel more connected, or are you holding on because it feels safer than being vulnerable? The narrow middle isn't about stripping everything away. It won't tell you to ditch your beliefs or commitments. It just won't let them turn to stone. It keeps them alive and keeps them moving. Here's the bit most people overlook. Once you notice you've gotten stiff or stuck, your gut reaction is to throw out all the rules. Suddenly, structure feels like the enemy. Ritual seems pointless. Even your sense of identity starts to look like a cage. So you start loosening up everything. You call it being flexible. You tell yourself you're just going with the flow. Sometimes you even get a little smug about how unattached you've become. But honestly, that's just another extreme. It's not balance. It's just a reaction. You're still walking the same tightrope, just tipping the other way. Letting go of all structure doesn't set you free. It just leaves you adrift. Tossing out routines doesn't make you enlightened. Most times, it just means you're drifting all over again, right back to where you started. Real balance isn't about saying no to structure. It's about picking it on purpose. It's knowing when discipline helps you grow and when it's making you brittle. When looseness gives you room to breathe and when it's just another way to hide. Nobody can hand you a formula for this. There isn't a quick cheat code or guide that tells you how to find balance in 30 days or less. You have to sense it yourself. You have to catch those moments when you're clenching up and catch the ones when you're just floating away. That constant tuning, that back and forth, that's what the middle actually feels like. We often think of balance as this serene, peaceful state where everything lines up just right, as though we could reach some inner stillness and stay there, untouched by the chaos around us. But maybe true balance isn't about feeling calm at all. Maybe it isn't this flawless, mirror-like symmetry or a perfectly even split between opposing forces. In fact, it can be downright uncomfortable. Sometimes, balance is awkward, gritty, and full of tension. The real heart of balance is the ongoing negotiation you have with yourself every single day. Inside, there's a tug of war. One part of you is hungry for deep commitment, longing to pour yourself fully into something meaningful. At the same time, there's another voice urging you to stay alert, to keep questioning, to protect your boundaries and maintain your discernment. You might crave the safety of clear rules and routines, but there's also a rebellious streak that resists confinement, that wants freedom and spontaneity. This dynamic is alive, shifting moment to moment, never static. Balance isn't about erasing those oppositions or eliminating the friction between them. It's not about silencing one side for the sake of the other. The tension is part of the process, and learning to live with it is where the real work happens. It's about refusing to get swept entirely into one extreme, resisting the urge to let go of the rope and tumble all the way into rigidity or chaos. That takes discipline, and a willingness to lean into structure when you need it, but also the humility to loosen your grip when you realize you've gone too far. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you need to pull back, to soften, to make space for the other side of yourself. There's no glamour in this. Often, there's just uncertainty. You feel unsure if you're getting it right or if you're just treading water. The doubts are normal. The answers aren't always clear, and sometimes all you can do is keep showing up, willing to try again. At its core, balance asks for your awareness. It asks you to stay present, to notice when things are shifting inside you or around you. It's about making small, constant adjustments, often imperceptible to others, but profoundly meaningful to you. It's about challenging yourself to be honest, to show up as your true self, rather than simply performing the motions you think are expected. This self-awareness is a practice, one that grows stronger the more you engage with it. True balance isn't about planting your feet in the dead center and refusing to move. It's about understanding the landscape of your own needs and tendencies, and knowing when to lean into one side and when to return to neutral. It's about flexibility, resilience, and the courage to keep adjusting. In that way, balance becomes less of a destination and more of a lifelong journey. It becomes this beautiful and dynamic dance between devotion and discernment, between structure and freedom, between effort and ease. And the beauty is, you don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to keep moving, keep noticing, and keep choosing to show up for yourself, one moment at a time. If something here stayed with you, you don't need to resolve it. Let it unfold in its own time. There's also writing from this same place, brief letters on Substack, and longer reflections on Medium. I'm Veyrin Vale, and this has been The Hidden Threshold, a project of Obscura Meridian.